Hey everybody, this is Patrick Collins, aka Swayze Reborn. Let's hop into the show. Our first story today is going to be a look at the bipartisan infrastructure deal, the package that Biden is trying to pass with the bipartisan deal he's trying to pass with the Republicans, and how it is failing and how everyone hates it. And we're gonna look at it at first from the position of Donald Trump. So Trump calls Republicans weak fools and losers for negotiating infrastructure. As Republicans scuffled with Democrats in the White House over the massively watered down bipartisan infrastructure package on Monday, former President Donald Trump issued a statement pressuring the GOP to drop the negotiations entirely. Trump said that the negotiations make the Republicans look weak and criticized Minority Leader Mitch McConnell for ca- uh, capitulating to the Democrats' demands on the infrastructure bill, even though McConnell isn't part of the bipartisan group forming the package. It's McConnell, too, who has been unforgivably critical of the Democrats' proposals on infrastructure. The former president also said that Republicans should wait until 2022 to pass an infrastructure package when he thinks proper election results, Republican favoring results, could come in. Don't do the infrastructure deal. Wait until after we get the proper election results in 2022 or otherwise, and regain a strong negotiation stance, Trump said. Republicans, don't let the radical left play you for weak fools and losers. Horrible. I know it's a horrible Trump impression. So, why why is this even in why is this really important that a man who is no longer running in office, in a political office, or running for office at the moment, why is he still a major part of the news? Well, it's because Trump is still in charge of the Republican Party. And the Republican Party has already shown during this deal that they're doing exactly what Trump wants, what he is asking his party to do at this moment. They're already doing, like, they're already ahead of him. So I think it just kind of doubles down on the fact that the bill is dead in the water. So they have been cutting this bill to shreds since it was first proposed. It was originally a 4.5 uh, or it was originally a 2.25 trillion-dollar bill, bipartisan bill, which included infrastructure, but also a lot of climate change provisions and what they were calling the human infrastructure, which was going to be a social safety net for the working poor. And they have taken this bill and knocked it down to less than $1 trillion. They have gutted it. And that was just in negotiations. And they're still not signing on to it. Now, Mitch McConnell, again, Trump wants to call out Mitch McConnell, even though he has no direct action against this bill or for this bill. But Mitch McConnell is a very interesting character because he is his own brand of horrible, and he has already said from the start of the Biden administration that their focus as a party and as him as head of the House for Republicans, his focus as a party is to make sure that none of Biden's agenda gets enacted. So from the beginning, they're set up to be contrarian. They don't want a deal. And that is why it just drives me insane, because they don't want to deal with you. They don't want to deal with us, and they definitely don't want to deal with Biden. But yet he seems to continue to push it. Now, you may ask why these provisions are gutted. Well, you can only imagine, because Republicans and the GOP don't really care about climate, and they don't really care about people. But no, the real problem and how they were able to gut it so entirely was by framing the statement. And when they said a infrastructure deal, when they say infrastructure, they mean brick and mortar, they mean roads, they mean bridges, they mean railways, and that's a big part of it. But infrastructure is more than that, because we need to start building an infrastructure for the Green New Deal, which was going to be included into the bill. And we need to have an infrastructure in place for when working families and the working poor go through hard times, as if anything in this after COVID has shown us that you never know what's going to happen. Now, these are forms of infrastructure, but to Republicans, their framing is that they do not actually consider them infrastructure because it's not brick and mortar. And you can go through the Republicans' stances and see how they've always used wording to make their point and to get more people on their side by the framing of it and not actually what they're trying to say, as proven by them campaigning against the estate tax, which they would call the death tax. When you call something a death tax, it's automatically making people afraid that people are coming for you after you die, and it's not. And it's misleading. The framing is very misleading, and the same with the pro-life argument. Pro-life sounds so good on paper, but if you actually say I'm against females having reproductive rights over their own bodies, sounds a little worse. So you could just say pro-life. Now, the Republicans are a party of Trump, and Mitch McConnell is he was a big supporter of Trump for a long time, and he, like as I said, is his own brand of horrible. And as a major representative of the GOP and a big, just a high-ranking member of the government in general, it's horrible that Mitch McConnell is wrong about virtually everything. There's not a single thing I can think of that Mitch McConnell is right about. 100% of the time for corporations, not for the people. 100% of the time for Wall Street, for big banks, for profiteering off of war, for big oil. 100% of the time. He's not for raising the minimum wage. He's not for a Green New Deal, obviously. He's not for really anything except for backing his donors. So he's just, and that's the leader, one of the main leaders of the GOP. So you can see the kind of people that we're dealing with here when we're trying to have bipartisan discussions, and how it's not really going to work out at the end of the day. So when you see Trump saying Republicans don't let the left play you for weak fools and losers, you see who's still in charge. Doesn't matter if he's not in office or really even on the radar at the moment, but he's always being talked about. He's always in the room. And they've been delaying talks since the bill, before the bill even was officially proposed. They've been gutting it, delaying it, and then blaming Democrats for holding the bill up. And now, after it's been completely gutted, they still want to take more from it. They're not going, I feel like they're just not going to sign it. And Biden is going to look weak. Biden and the Democrats are going to look extremely weak in this situation because they gutted it. And they're going to continue to gut it. And then at the end of the day, even after they give the Republicans everything they want and more, the Republicans still aren't going to sign it. And they're going to have egg all over their face and they're going to look dumb. And it's working. It's all a political move where nothing's going to get done, and they're both basically trying to throw the blame at each other. The GOP as a whole does not want to work on bipartisan agreements. So, toss them. Toss it. And I don't understand why Biden didn't do this in the first place. It's just completely toss the whole Senate. Just send it up in flames. Just burn it to the ground. If they don't want to work together, then just let the bill burn. If they don't want to take what you're offering, or at least have a reasonable stance on it, just let it burn. But no, placate, and placate. That's what the Biden administration has been very good with. So when they're giving them everything they want, and then denying other Democrats the ability to weigh in on the bill, it shows extreme cowardice and weakness from Joe Biden. He has not even let the House of Representatives, our wing of the House of Representatives, the Democrats, and Pete DeFazio, anywhere near this bill since it's been gutted. And Pete DeFazio is a member of the House of Representatives, which is an independent branch of the government. We have three branches of the government for a reason: checks and balances. And when you don't let a whole independent wing of the government make decisions as it should legally be allowed to, then it kind of defeats the point of democracy, doesn't it? So Pete DeFazio is extremely upset about these discussions, as he should be, because he was the one that was trying to fight for the environmental changes in the infrastructure bill. And they completely gutted his whole entire bill. And there doesn't sound to be any plans of picking it up in the partisan budget agreement. This man's life work. And yet it's still a question of politics. If I was DeFazio, I would be slamming everybody from McConnell to Biden to Trump, and for disrespecting the country and disrespecting me personally at that point. Because if this infrastructure bill, if it passes, which I don't see it passing at this point, I just don't. But if it passes, it's going to be a joke. And the Democrats are going to look weak from it.